Welcome back. Today we are going to get deeper into whatever we had studied. Last time we had learned about object-oriented programming. I believe you remember that. And we started with the four different principles. Remember, encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism. This is what we learned. Today we are going to go deeper into the language called Java. So today my primary concern will be on Java fundamentals. And while doing so, you have to understand there are certain aspects of Java. Java is not just another language and you will be learning a different syntax or anything of that sort. Java is unique within itself. First of all, you have to understand how it works. Unlike other languages which you have already studied, some of you have already studied. Though some of you have already started with Java in your classes earlier to this class, some of you have studied other languages. Say for example, you have a language like C++, where whatever program you write, whatever source code you have, when compiled, you remember the process of compilation. Compilation means converting it to a machine understandable language. So whenever you compile in C++, it always converted it to machine language. In a broad sense, any C++ source code will be converted to machine language. Whereas when it comes to Java, it is not converted to machine language. What it gets converted to, it gets converted to such a language which is understood by the machine. I am repeatedly telling this because there is a reason behind it. Because the machine need not be understanding only the machine language. But you have been studying since your childhood that whenever it comes to a computer understands only one language, that is machine language. Now, how come I am telling you the Java source code is going to get converted to machine understandable language, and yet I am not mentioning about machine language? The reason behind this is Java do not work in that particular manner which you have already come across in C++ language. It works in a slightly different way. What actually basically happens is, suppose you have a Java source code. This is called the Java source code. Which when compiled, when you go for the process of compilation, gets converted to bytecode. And bytecode is a language which is interpreted or understood and put into action by the JVM, Java Virtual Machine. Remember the full form of that? So your Java source code will first be compiled. After compilation, it will get converted to bytecode, and that bytecode will be interpreted by the Java Virtual Machine. Now, Java Virtual Machine is a pseudo software only machine which is installed inside your computer. Remember, what actually happens is, I am telling you what happens. Whenever you install Java, suppose in your case you are installing BlueJ, along with that you are installing Java. So what basically happens is, whenever you are installing Java in either way, using an IDE or alone Java or any development kit you are using, what actually happens is the Java Virtual Machine gets automatically installed into your computer. Once it is installed, remember, this is a pseudo machine. It's a software only machine which is created. That means your program, whatever source code you have, do not run on the physical computer. It runs on the virtual computer, that is on the false computer, the pseudo machine. And it gives you the answer on the screen. So sounds strange, isn't it? But this is what actually happens. Now the reason behind doing this, creating Java in this particular manner was, Java was created to work in any kind of platform irrespective of the underlying hardware or software. Java was created to work with any kind of hardware or software irrespective of the whatever operating system you have or whatever hardware you have. The reason behind this is, you see, today what happens with Java is, you can use Java for developing normal applications which you find in your computer, or it may be different kind of web services, it may be chat engines, it may be Android applications. Even Android is based upon Java, all Android apps, they'll be based upon Java. So all these things are developed using Java, and you see the best part about Java is you can make a Java program work in a Windows machine, and as well as it can work on a computer which is having Linux as its operating system. It can also work on a computer which has Unix as its operating system. It's still going to work. You see, this is not going to happen with C++. In C++, suppose you write a source code, suppose you write a program in C++ for Windows machine. That particular software will only work in another computer which has the Windows operating system. It cannot work on a computer which has Linux operating system. For making the program work on a Linux operating system, you have to make small changes. Though small, but you have to make changes. And imagine if you have a source code of few millions of lines, how much time will it take? Normally that is normal, having millions of lines for a software code. So out there, how much time will be consumed just to make the program, transferable or portable to some other operating system? It takes a huge amount of time. That is why, such languages were created, like Java, where the program never runs on the physical machine, because had it run on the physical machine, it would be dependent upon the platform. So what they did was they created a Java virtual machine, which is independent of the underlying hardware or software. So whenever you are installing Java, it may be your mobile phone, it may be your smartphone, it may be your tab, it may be your supercomputer, it may be a mainframe, it may be a PC, or your laptop, anywhere you do it, it will install or give the same type of environment. So Java virtual machine, the environment is exactly same, irrespective of whatever hardware you have. And that is why whatever program you write in Java, it gets interpreted, it gets compiled to bytecode and then interpreted in the Java virtual machine. So the Java virtual machine in your computer will be exactly same as in your mobile phone. It will be exactly same even in a supercomputer. So without any tweaking your source code or without making any changes in your source code, your program can run anywhere. That is why Java was created this way, unlike C++, where every program will get converted to machine language. Java was never created in that way because they wanted to make it platform independent, and hence we call Java with this characteristic, Wora. That means write once, run anywhere or run anytime. So you are going to write the source code once, and you can execute the program anywhere or anytime, any number of time. It doesn't matter. So that is why Java is so unique. So it's not that the syntax is similar to C++ or anything of that sort. The way it works internally is completely different from whatever you have studied so far. So I believe you understood what is happening over here. So first, your source code, it gets compiled to bytecode and then it is interpreted by the Java virtual machine. So this is how the entire Java program works. Now we'll get into the tokens of Java. So now we are going to start with Java tokens. But before getting into Java tokens, I'll tell you the meaning of tokens. You need not worry about it right now. What is important is, first of all, what is used to write a Java source code or writing a Java program. So the first thing what we require is the character set, and then I'll get into tokens. Character set. Character set means the set of characters which is used to write a Java program. So what are the different type of character sets which are used in Java program? First, alphabets, remember? A to Z, small a to Z. So all this means there may be characters used in other languages also. So we have digits from 0 to 9, and then different symbols. And in symbols, what do we have? We have different type of punctuators, comma, semicolon, dot. We have quotes, double quotes, we have single quotes. So all sorts of things are there. So these are the character sets. And remember, Java follows a unique type of character called the Unicode. Unicode means universal coding system. It's a type of encoding system of characters which is used to incorporate It's a type of encoding system of characters. Now let me tell you what does it mean. Encoding system means for every character there is a corresponding number associated with it. Some of you have already heard about one type of encoding, you have studied it, that is called the ASCII code system, ASCII, American Standard Code for Information Interchange. In Java we do not use ASCII because it's limited only to America or English speaking countries or places. So here what we are trying to do is we are trying to create software packages which are truly global in nature. We are trying to internationalize things. That is why we follow the Unicode system. And when it comes to the Unicode system, what happens is there are characters of almost, mark my words, it's almost all the languages of the world. So ultimately what we have is we have 65,536 characters altogether. And there are more combinations to each one of this. Don't think that only this many characters are there in the world. There are more combinations to form new characters. Even that is within this. So you can just imagine to what size it can grow. So 65,536 characters are there for which there are corresponding numbers. And that is called Unicode system. So Java follows the Unicode system, the Unicode character set for writing programs. And more details of this I am going to tell you later on. Currently, just remember the character set used by Java is Unicode system. And now we are going to get into something called a token. Now, what is a token? A token is the fundamental building block of a program. So please remember that token is the fundamental building block of a program. I believe you are keeping notes of whatever I am trying to tell over here. So a token is the fundamental building block of a program. It means that these are small units through which you develop a program. So what are the different types of tokens? Types of tokens. So what are the different types of tokens? First, number one is the keywords. Keywords, I believe you know that they are reserved words which has a special meaning to the Java compiler. These are reserved words. It cannot be used for anything else other than what it is intended for. For example, you have used statements like if, void. So what are these? These are keywords. You cannot use a variable called if, of course in lowercase. So you cannot write int if, because if is a keyword and it cannot be used for anything else other than what it is intended for. That is why we call it a reserved word. So Java has 60 keywords. And in course of time we are going to learn few. Second, we have literals. Literals are constants which are assigned to variables. You must have seen int a equal to 5. So 5 is a literal. Of course, it's an integer literal to be more precise. We can classify things further. So we have literals. And then what do we have? We have something called identifiers. Identifiers are some kind of identification. Identification means what? It's a name given to different parts of a program. Now, what are the different parts of a program? You may have variable name, you may have class name, that is program name. You may have function name or method name. I'll be slowly coming across that. But whatever it is, identifiers are simply names given to different parts of a program. So those are identifiers. And remember, the value which is inserted into a variable, they are called literals, also called constants. Next we have punctuators. Punctuators are separators, basically. They are separators used to separate different elements in a program. For example, we use comma for separation, we use semicolon for separation, we use dot for separation. So many different, operators or symbols are there which is used for separation. Like in Java, we have semicolon to separate different lines. Similarly, we have a certain usage of dot, we have certain usage of colon, we have certain usage of parenthesis. All these are coming under the punctuators. So next comes finally operators. Operators are symbols which is used to evaluate in an expression. The expression may be mathematical expression, it may be a logical expression. Say for example, a plus b, if I have something like that. So plus is an operator. Of course, it's an arithmetic operator. So there are different type of operators also in Java. We'll get into the details of each one of these tokens. However, what is important is these are 5 tokens which should be used in a program for writing an entire source code. Sometimes it is also specified about a 6th token. Since the syllabus is not allowing it, that is why we usually do not write it in textbooks. But it is also a token, and it's a valid token, that is called white space. White space. White space is a single word. Please remember that. White space is a token which is used to provide blank lines or blank spaces inside the source code, and that's completely valid. So if I have the first line written over there in Java, followed by 3 blank spaces, and then followed by the remaining part of the program, I have done this for increasing the clarity of my program, then it's completely valid. And those white spaces are valid tokens. That means it's not an invalid token. You're not using any nonsense symbol. So what are white spaces? White spaces are, it may be a blank space, it may be a tab space, it may be a new line character. That means whenever you're pressing enter, that is a new line character. So 3 possibilities of white spaces are space, tab, and new line character. So these are the possible white spaces which are considered to be a valid type of token. However, since the syllabus do not allow it, so we do not mention that in the book. However, I believe you should be remembering there's all these 6 type of tokens, but this 5 is must. You should be remembering this. So we are going to begin with the first type of token, that is keywords. Keywords, I believe you remember what are keywords. Keywords are reserved word which has a special meaning to the Java compiler. And remember, there are 60 keywords. Examples, I'm just going to write the examples over here. And definition, I believe you have written it. Examples are, say, for, if, else, while, do. So all these commands which you have already learned, these are all examples of keyword, and it cannot be used for anything else other than what it is intended for. So these are examples of keywords. Next, what we are going to do is, instead of getting into identifiers, what I am going to do is, I am going to start with literals first. Literals are, I said, these are constants which are assigned to variables. But before understanding these literals, let me show you what actually is a literal. Suppose int a equal to 5. So here a is an identifier or variable in our case, and 5 is a constant or literal. Constant or literal. So it's a fixed value which is assigned to a variable. You can define it that way, and it has been categorized into a number of different types in literal. So first of all, I'm going to talk about the different types of literal. So one is the integer literal, the first. Integer literal. And then we have floating point literal. Integer literal means it is used to represent numbers without a point. And we have floating point literal to represent numbers with decimal point, obviously. And then we have character literals. So it is used to represent characters. Characters are any valid, character of the character set enclosed within single quotes. Next we have string literal. We have a group of characters within double quote. In Java, we basically distinguish between a single character and multiple characters. Single character is always enclosed within single quote, and multiple characters are enclosed within double quotes. That is how they distinguish, how Java distinguishes between character literal and string literal. Next we have Boolean literal. Boolean literals are basically used to represent it is used to represent state of a certain variable or a certain condition. So it can be either true state or false state. That means whether it is on or off. Again, we get back to the switching system of computer. That is, a computer can be in either of the two states, that is on state or off state, or 1 or 0. In this case, Boolean means it can either be in true state or false state. I'll give you an example related to this. However, these are the different type of literals which we'll be using. Apart from this, we also sometimes use something called the null literal. All small, please remember that, null literal, because it's also a keyword. It's also a keyword. Even Boolean is a keyword. So, null literal, sometimes we use this. We'll see its usage when we start with programs related to class and objects. But these are the different type of literals which are used. So first we are going to study in details the integer literal, because maximum part of your program will be related to integers. So this integer literal again has been categorized into several segments or several types. That is decimal integer literal, then we have octal integer literal, and then we have hexadecimal integer literal. We don't have a binary representation because that is what is internally done. So we have decimal integer literal, octal integer literal, and hexadecimal integer literal. So there are three types of integer literals out there. Now when it comes to integer literal, when it comes to decimal integer literal, this is what you had been doing so far with programming in whatever language you are using. So when I tell int a equal to 5, that 5 is a decimal integer literal, in the sense that I'm not talking about decimal with the sense of decimal point. What I'm trying to tell you is it's a number which is used to represent a number of the decimal number system. That is a number that consists of digits 0 to 9. So all these digits, that is 0 to 9, if it forms a number, we call it a decimal number. So such numbers will be represented using integer literal decimal. Now remember, there shouldn't be any comma. Sometimes we give in question 10,000 and you write it this way, int a equal to 10,000. That's absurd. We never put a comma or any kind of separator over here. That is only in the question paper or in mathematics we put it. But when it comes to coding, no integer literal can have a comma in the middle of it. That's a rule. That is the reason why we do this. Remember that. So remember, decimal integer literal will have numbers where digits are from 0 to 9, and it should always begin with a digit other than 0. Please remember that. It should not begin with a number which begins with 0. Next comes octal integer literal. In octal integer literal, what basically happens is you are going to represent numbers of the octal number system. In that case, what happens? You can use digits from 0 to 7. I believe you have studied already in lower classes about octal number system, and out there you can use digits consisting of numbers from 0 to 7. So that is why what we do is, suppose I have an octal number, say 45. So I have to write it 45. If I write it this way, it will think it to be a decimal integer literal. So what we do is we put a 0 before it. So please remember, octal integer literal always precedes with the digit 0. That is why for decimal integer literal we never allow the number to be preceding with 0. So octal integer literals always precedes with 0. And next comes hexadecimal integer literal. In hexadecimal integer literal, of course, it is used to represent number of the hexadecimal number system, and this time it always begins with the characters 0x, where x may be capital or small letter. So suppose I have a hexadecimal number int a equal to 0x457. So this is a completely valid hexadecimal number. So this is a hexadecimal integer literal where x may be in lowercase or uppercase because it's an alphabet. We may also have something like this, 0x45ae. Remember, hexadecimal has 16 digits where the first 10 digits are from 0 to 9 and the remaining digits are from A to F. The remaining 5 digits are from A to F. So this is what happens with integer literal. When it comes to floating point literal, there are two categories in which we divide it. That is, first of all, we have float and then we have double. In float and double, what happens? In float, it is used to represent numbers, a shorter number, whereas double is used to represent numbers which are longer in size, in the sense that float is used to represent numbers where after point we may have 7 or 8 digits. After decimal point we may have 7 or 8 digits. When it comes to double, there after the decimal point we have 15 to 16 digits. So you can imagine the size of the precision of double. So that is why we call floating point literal or float to be a single precision number and double to be a double precision number, in the sense that float is used to represent numbers where after the decimal point you have 7 or 8 digits, whereas for double precision numbers we have after decimal point 15 or to 16 digits. So these are the two types of floating point literals used in Java. However, there is a point out there to remember, that floating point literals are always suffixed with the letter F. Floating point literals, I'll give you an example. Suppose I have float a equal to 12.7. Now this is completely invalid because 12.7 will be considered to be double type of floating point literal. So what we do is, to represent this to be as floating point literal, what we do? We use the letter F. F may be in capital or small letter. So this is how the computer distinguishes. So if I write, say for example, double a equal to 12.7, this is a valid double type number, or you may write it as 12.7D. Writing D is optional for, double data type. However, you may write it also. Whereas when it comes to floating point literal, and if it is of float type, you have to suffix the number with the letter F, which may be in capital letter or small letter. Next comes the character literal. In character literal, a character is enclosed within single quote. So here we have A. This is an example of character literal. You cannot have multiple characters within single quote. That is invalid. For doing that, we use the string literal. In string literal, you may have a single character or you may have multiple characters enclosed within double quotes. So here what we have is, say, Siliguri. So we have to begin with the double quote and end with the double quote. So in this case, what we have is a string literal. Next comes Boolean literal. In Boolean literal, there are two possibilities, that is true or false. True or false. Remember that these two are keywords also. True is a keyword, false is a keyword. So these are Boolean literals to represent the different states of a certain condition. Next comes null literal. Null literal is used to make an object refer to null, that is to no memory location. I'll give you a small example. We'll get into details later for this null. Null, you won't get it right now. S equal to null. That means S is an object. I'm giving you just an example, but we'll learn this later. So S is just an object which refers to no memory location, that is null. So this is a small usage. You can just simply learn by heart this. And then even this time I'm going to post you with certain notes and assignments. I would expect you to do those notes or assignment. That's it.